Hello everybody, what is up and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Annabelle Brame and I'm a fashion student at the University of Delaware. So, today I'm going to be showing you how to get in to some of the top design schools in the country and who have the best design programs. Like, obviously this is not all of them, but these are the ones that fit my requirements and what I was looking for. I'm going to be telling you guys today about 5 schools. I have a nice handy dandy list with some notes. The schools I'm going to be talking to you about is North Carolina State University, Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU, Cornell University, University of Delaware, and of course FIT in New York City. FIT will be the last one that I talk about because I have a lot to say. A lot of questions come up about the portfolio requirements, things like that. So all of those questions will be answered at the end of the video and how I got into there. But I'm going to be talking to you about some of the things that you should just know applying to design schools in general. And I did want to also note that when I was applying, I wasn't looking for just plainly art schools. FIT is just an art school, but that was the only one out of the other 5. I do want to note I wanted a school that had a traditional college experience, but also had a great fashion education department. Like, I was getting a good fashion degree from that school. So both those are very important. I'm going to be posting another video about how I chose the college I did next week, so make sure you subscribe if you want to know how to decide where to go after all of these options that you'll get accepted to if you follow these tips. With that being said, last thing, I am not a proven expert. Obviously, these are just the things that worked for me. I got accepted to these schools with these techniques, and these are the things I've learned along the way, and I'm just going to be giving you all the advice I can possibly give. Let me know if you have questions in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer, or DM me on Instagram. All that being said, let's just get right into the video because I have a lot to talk about. Okay, I'm going to first tell you the 4 things you absolutely need to know when applying for a fashion design department any school. So this is no matter where you apply, not these 5 specifically, anywhere. That'll help you get in and really make you aware of the choice that you're making. So, first of all, deadlines are so important. As a fashion design student, the deadline at pretty much most of these schools is November 1st. Why, you might ask? They really just hit the design students where it hurts with this one. You have to apply early at most of these schools because they have a portfolio to look through as well. There's a lot more to consider when you're a design student than most other students don't even realize, okay? So make sure you're checking those deadlines, because I know people who have missed design deadlines just because they weren't aware that November 1st you had to have that application in. There was no later date to do it. So make sure you're checking. That's super easy to check. You can just find that on their website and they'll give you all the information. Next is the portfolio description. Make sure you read that. Each portfolio is different for each school. Each school wants different things, different mediums, different projects for specific projects for each school. You need to make sure you read that in order so you are getting the best foot forward. Often in those descriptions it also tells you what they want to see. So what they want to see, a real focus on being able to do diverse things or being able to have good strong sewing abilities. You want to make sure you tailor that to your portfolio. Again, all of that is either in your slide room, which is where you'll end up submitting your portfolio, or on their website. So please make sure you do your research and you're very aware of what each school wants, because it's very important. Next, be aware of the typical student or the art that they produce. If a school has a fashion design department, you can bet your butt that they have a fashion show. So make sure you go on Google, YouTube, and look up that school's fashion show so you know what they kind of make. Because, for example, for me, I was going to apply to RISD, which is a fantastic design school, but after going to portfolio day and meeting what their typical student was, that's not me. I make more simpler clothing with really elegant details and stuff like that, and people at RISD, maybe it's a more out there crazy clothes, and I love that too, but that's just not particularly me. So make sure when you're looking at those students and the fashion shows that you feel like you'd fit in and you feel like your design would be able to be aided and grown from there. And the last one is make sure you get into the college first. This I did not know, and I wish I had been more prepared and someone had told me this. If you're a design student, your GPA and your SAT still matter just as much, unfortunately. I had a fantastic GPA. My test score wasn't fantastic. I had a 1220 on my SAT, and I had a 4.4 GPA. And so I was like, I'm a design student. That shouldn't be too much of a problem applying to some of these bigger schools. That's not a big deal. I have a fantastic portfolio. But what they don't tell you is a lot of these schools, if you do not have those first boxes ticked, if you don't have the right test score, GPA, financial need, all those sort of stuff, you don't even get your portfolio looked at. So don't waste your time. This is what I wish someone told me. Don't waste your time applying to schools you feel like you won't get into academically, because they do look at that first, and you'll spend a lot of time and money in an application for a school that might weed you out immediately. That does not mean do not apply to rich schools. That's not what I'm saying. I just wish I knew beforehand to prepare a little harder for my SAT, or work a little harder in certain categories to make sure I had those sort of things that wouldn't weed me out immediately from some of these stacks of piles of paper, so my portfolio wasn't wasted. So be aware that those things do matter, unfortunately, and unlike other students who are like applying for psychology or something like that, it's not just your test scores and stuff and that's all you need. Your whole application isn't even looked at until you tick those first boxes, so make sure you're very aware of that and you're putting your best foot forward in terms of that work, okay? Just really, really make sure you know what you're going in for. Look at College Board, look at their website, things like that. Just be very aware of that. Now, let's get into these schools. First things first is VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. It is the #1 public arts school in the country. It has a fantastic arts program, and they have a specific fashion design major. And one thing I would like to note is I applied to schools that had a focus on sustainability. I wanted the sustainability aspect to be large. I specifically wanted a bachelor's in science. So one of the reasons I did not end up choosing VCU is because it was a Bachelor of Fine Arts, and so it's just a little bit different. Some of the curriculums were different, but I'm going to explain to you how I got into VCU. So I attended a portfolio day. You can go to these all across the country. They're normally in October 8th specifically is when I went to mine. Mine was actually hosted at VCU because I am from Virginia, and so I went to that. I got all the advice, went to the VCU table, and asked for specifically what they want in a portfolio. If you are a fashion design major, pretty much every single school is going to want a portfolio from you. Each portfolio is different. What each school wants is different. Never submit the same portfolio to all of these different schools because they just don't all want the same thing. So for VCU, I showed up with my notepad and all of the possible options I had for my portfolio day, hundreds of pieces of art. So I had paintings, drawings, fashion sketches, I had projects I'd sewn, all this sort of stuff, and I let VCU tell me what they want. You can do this also through appointment. You can call them and ask to find out what they want from you, and that's a really good indicator of getting into the school, okay? So with that being said, at the portfolio day, I had a really positive response and experience with the VCU rep, and she said a lot of good things and asking for their specific advice. That is going to remain constant through each of these schools. If you have an opportunity to meet with a representative from them, literally show them what you have to offer, and they will say, as a perspective, as someone who works at this school, this is what I think would be best for you and help guide you along the way. So the next school I'd like to talk about is Cornell University. It obviously is an Ivy. It is up there. It has a great fashion design program. It also is very textile specific, very focused on sustainability. But I have a couple general notes I did want to hit along the way. And so speaking of Cornell, Cornell is the only school I did not get into. And I'm saying my advice for this school, even though I didn't get in, because I think I know why. Cornell's SAT, or typical acceptance rate, is a lot higher than 1220. And so by me not having that or checking that box for them, it is likely that my portfolio didn't even get reviewed by the design department because I was already out of the running. Cornell was also very focused on sustainability. I did include a lot of that into my questions and all that sort of stuff. So I definitely recommend, if you're applying to that school, do a lot of research. That is one school that I did not have a meeting, like one-on-one, about my portfolio. And so I think, unlike all the other schools that I got into, I had appointments set up to prepare me for my best success, but I did not have that for Cornell. So I just did want to put that in there. If you are applying, good luck. You got this. Just make sure you know what you're doing and work for it, because even as a design student, you still need a good SAT score to go to an Ivy, which should be expected, but it was naive of me to think otherwise. Next up is NC State, Wilson College of Textiles. My college acceptance story is very odd. Again, I said I'll put it in another video next week, but I almost did go to NC State. NC State was pretty much the school I was anticipating going to. I got in pretty early and I knew I wanted to go there. So if you know you want to go to NC State, here are some things, especially for the design program, that you need to know, because they only do accept 16 total students, 16 total for their textile major and their fashion design major. So that is a very, very slim picking. So I was very honored that I got picked, but it is a hard process to get there. So I knew I wanted to go to NC State for Wilson College of Textiles because I had attended a summer camp the summer before my senior year. So if you're watching this now and you're going to be applying next year, if it is pretty much January through March, you have the capability to apply for the summer textiles exploration program, and you can basically pick a major within there, and they're going to do a week of just what it's like in that major, and you get to meet all sorts of teachers, professors, other students and stuff like that, and it gives you great insight on if, one, that is the program you want to work with, two, if it's the right school for you, and three, it looks fantastic when you're applying to their school. You can say, I did this program with NC State and I was a member here and I loved it, sort of stuff, and it makes you stand out. It makes you someone who's obviously putting effort in to go to that school. That being said, NC State has a big focus on sustainability as well, so when you're making your portfolio or you're writing your essays, make sure you incorporate that and talking about how much you care about that and what you want to do to help as an NC State student. Also, it does require an interview. So, I got picked for an interview. So basically the deadline to apply to NC State was November 1st for any design student. So if you wanted to go to Wilson College of Textiles, you had to apply by November 1st. There was no regular decision. It was only that early decision deadline. So I applied to NC State, and then around the last week in November, I got an email saying I was picked to be interviewed. So I was picked to be interviewed. I'd have to go up to NC State. I went to NC State, had dressed all fancy in my business attire and all that sort of stuff. I wore red, all that jazz, and basically sat down and talked about my portfolio. I had to bring a piece of that I had produced. I had to show them everything that I had to offer, and that really helps you stand out. You need to make that interview excellent in order to get picked, because there are so many girls you're going to see sitting there who want it as bad as you do. So make sure you're showing up to that interview prepared and ready to go and showing your best work. So that's NC State. I did end up getting into there. Next up is University of Delaware, where I am at right now. I love the University of Delaware. Again, that'll be back in my next video on how I picked the college I'm at. But University of Delaware hadn't originally been on my radar too much for when I was thinking about sustainable fashion design. I ended up looking up, once I got in, UD's fashion design program after I'd already been accepted and all that sort of stuff, and it is ranked extremely highly for sustainable design. If you're interested in sustainable fashion design, the University of Delaware was the first school to actually create a program specified around sustainable design. So if you're looking for that, please, please, please consider UD. One thing about UD you should know for a fashion design major, again, they don't accept a lot of kids. It's again about 15, much like NC State, but it is only for the design department, so it's only for fashion design. That being said, University of Delaware for fashion design offers an optional portfolio. If it says optional, please do it. For University of Delaware, right here, you look 10 times better going into a fashion design major if you have fashion design things to show them and offer to them. Show them that you are something they should be willing to invest in because you have experience and you're ready to continue building off of that. So UD is really looking for someone who is putting forward that portfolio of good things at the beginning, and that'll give you an excellent chance of getting in. Also, they had given me a lot of scholarship money to go there, so that was just amazing. The final school is FIT. For those of you who don't know, I do go to the University of Delaware, but they have a visiting student program with FIT, which means for the entirety of my junior year, I will be getting my associate's degree from FIT, and I'll be an FIT student for my junior year. I did get into their program for their full 4-year, 2-year plan, but I ended up choosing UD, lots of other reasons. That'll be in my separate video, but like I said, I got into FIT, which is the #1 fashion school in the country. Literally, it's a fantastic accomplishment. It's a great school if you're really into fashion. Not a traditional college experience, but it's definitely a fashion-oriented and will get you places in the fashion industry. So getting into the school is extremely challenging, and I'm going to be showing you how I did it. What makes them so specific is you pick one item to showcase to them. I ended up making a brand new sewn set, which I will include up here. I sewed it all myself. You could do a pattern one, but I recommend if you can do without a pattern, it shows off you have a little bit more skill and ability of making your own pattern. That just puts you a little step above the rest. But unlike the rest of the schools, you have a specific assignment. FIT requires, each year it's a little bit different, but overall it's kind of the same to the one you're applying to this year. I was so stressed about it, I ended up saving most of it. I ended up missing part of the portfolio because I didn't read the directions in full, which is why you need to read these instructions. FIT makes it something that they put on their website. Make sure to really carefully analyze the directions. If you are straying from the direction, that is exactly what they do not want to admit to their school. So make sure you're reading those directions, really understand the base of the project before you get started, okay? And so once you start that, You want everything to match, and aesthetic is extremely important to them. They included that in their statement. They said, we want students who can create an artistic aesthetic because it's an art school. It makes sense. You want to have something that seems cohesive. So the project is a place to travel or something like that, and then create 2 outfits with 4 items of clothing, okay? Basic as that. It had a couple of other little instructions, but I had to design 2 pieces of clothing based off a certain place, and I had to create a mood board for all of that. But the important part is not only making those designs beautiful and making them quality designs, but it all has to match. That mood board needs to flow really nicely with the actual designs itself and the fabric swatches and so on and so forth. You need to be really intentional with how you craft that portfolio. But FIT also does a statement. So something saying like why you want to go to FIT. And I actually found it this morning, and so I'm going to share with you what I wrote. So 750 words, what makes you the perfect candidate for FIT? Like I said, there's no resume, so I have to get it all in these 750 words. I'm going to read part of it, and then I'm going to kind of just explain the other paragraphs so that you can get an idea. Okay. It's very cheesy, by the way, but I guess that's what they wanted. While a small-town girl designing clothes out of her bedroom might not be the typical FIT student, I've always been an extremely competitive person. I learned quickly it took hard work and no one else's motivation but my own in order to excel. FIT has the reputation of being the best of the best, and I believe it will fit right in with the people who want to push themselves further than they ever thought they could go. Excellent first paragraph. Then, I move into the next paragraph. Is pretty long, and I end up talking about my research in sustainable design, how I research sustainable textiles, how to do all that sort of stuff, which I talk about in pretty much all of my school's essays. So I talked about that, the awards I won with VCU and getting, like, in presenting and all this sort of stuff. So, next. My next paragraph talks about, like, my experience in fashion itself. So I said I didn't have access to fashion lessons in school or nearby, so I am almost entirely self-taught. In my junior year of high school, I decided I wanted to find a community of people with similar interests. And I talked about how I started the fashion club in my own school, how I got sponsorships, how I got fundraising events, how we put on our fashion show, how I used leadership opportunities and all this sort of stuff. All of that is in that next paragraph. Next paragraph is the STEP program at NC State. I talked about how I did upcycling for that, eco-friendly, doing all that sort of stuff. And then I also talked about how I costume designed for my high school's production of West Side Story and how I did all of that designing and work and stuff like that. And then my last paragraph is, my work in fashion is what I'm passionate about, and I will work hard. My work in fashion is what I'm passionate about, and I will always work as hard as I need to reach my goals in such a competitive industry. This has become my lifestyle, and consistently designing, sewing, posting, and branding not only myself and my personal designs, but for the other clubs and people that I represent. My goal is to learn as much as possible about fashion design in college, so when I am out in the real world, I can be making clothes that are fashionable but also sustainable. I want to be at a school that gives me the tools and opportunities to improve so I can help make a difference in the fashion industry. So that was 750 words. Obviously it worked. I quite like it. Next is how my views differed from a teacher. This one I had to think about a little bit. Because I brought it back to my West Side Story, how I designed costumes. My vision for the show itself was different, to say the least, than my director's. So I had to work with her and create a collaborative creation of something that both she liked and I liked, but I needed to do it in a respectful way. And long story short, my camera cut out, and so it stopped recording, but I had gotten through all my tips, and so I'd given you all the advice that I could have given you, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and gave you a lot of information and helping you get in. And just remember that my DMs and comments are always open for you guys to leave your questions, and I'd love to help you out in any way possible. So let me know if you have anything else, and thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next week.